news. That's what we are. Old news. So Iron Man.
I can
Okay,
tell.
so we're gonna review a comic. It's a character. He's newer, right?
63.
Well, because this is based on a movie by Robert Downey Jr.
Which I believe he wrote and directed.
No.
And it's Iron Man,
Iron Man Armor Wars.
based off of the Black Sabbath
No.
song, and then later made into a movie
No.
by
63. Marvel Comics. Stan Lee.
Okay.
One of the more popular stories. The thing is with Iron Man is, to be honest, Iron Man is, of all the major Marvel characters, probably the most popular, the least successful over the years. He just happens to have one of the best movies. But, so to be honest, it was hard to find something like, the only story I would say is more popular than this is the, what is it called? The Alcohol Saga.
Yeah.
When he becomes an
Alcohol
alcoholic.
Saga.
Yeah, when he becomes an alcoholic.
Which actually on the cover of that, the famous issue where he's staring into the mirror and realizes he's an alcoholic, and he's got his bottle of booze with him, it's actually a bottle of CC, of Canadian Club.
Really? Wow,
Yeah.
look at that. That's interesting.
It's a shout out.
So anyway, so Armor Wars, originally called Stark Wars, but they had to change it for copyright reasons. So I read this as a kid. I read it many times, and rereading it was a pleasure. It's from 1987, so each issue takes 90 minutes to get through, as I'm sure you, as opposed to nowadays where everything is decompressed, everything is like a film. You know, every frame of a comic nowadays is like a word bubble, but here you get through an issue, and every issue is twists and turns and, you know, surprise endings, I found.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
Beautiful mullets.
yeah, exactly, mullets everywhere, and blue hair.
Yep.
But even though the dialogue is a little bit corny and there's a little bit of, you know, too much exposition, I was satisfied with every issue because even though I'd read it before, I was still surprised about how Tony Stark got out of every situation with a surprising
So
solution.
would you recommend this
Absolutely.
to a new reader?
Yeah, I would say, as long as you go in with an understanding that it's probably designed for a younger audience, I would say this is a great way to start with Iron Man.
Very nice. It was very good.
Brian.
Thank you, Brian. George, thanks for coming out.
With your standards so low, I'm surprised you're not married.
Edit that.
No,
Babe, I love you,
not a
baby.
great book, but I'm gonna, like, the mullets and that, like, again, cutting edge of that time, right? So, mullets and what's the other guy name?
The kid play fade.
Yeah,
James Rhodes.
James
It's
Rhodes.
Haircut.
beautiful.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
And they end it with that beautiful Barry Windsor-Smith. Was it a dream sequence?
It was
of
a
some
dream.
kind? Like he's crying out. To,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. He wakes up all drenched in
yeah.
sweat.
Oh my God.
Who's the new
I
Iron
forgot
It
Man?
never happened.
Brian, what did you think, man?
I loved it. It again, it was it really changed me as a kid. So I remember, you know, going to Comics Corner as a kid, and then I used to talk to Dan over in Fraser. It's like, what do you think of the Armor Wars? And he's all like, I don't really care, kid. You know, and then I'd have to run back to the car. I'm like, go, Mom, go.
I never read. We had this conversation a little bit earlier. I never really read Iron Man growing up. I read a lot of Marvel, but Iron Man just wasn't my thing. And reading this a couple nights ago, I totally understand why.
You didn't like it?
I know. It's just, you know what? It's hard to when a story is epic. I think something that makes something an epic story. It's also timeless. And there's too many things in the story, like the briefcase, where it's like he's carrying a briefcase and hold on, my Iron Man suit is in the briefcase.
It's rolled up. Yeah, he rolls it out like cloth onto his arm.
It's
I know.
just it's made out of cling film, and somehow it turns into metal. But it's that kind of thing, or them explaining the genius behind Tony Stark, and him talking about his new invention of the phone with no wires. And he's like, look, it has no wire. It's like a loop through it, and the phone's like this big. To me, it loses a bit of, I think Secret Wars holds its weight through time, and yeah, I
That's
think
a big battle royale, man. Like, you
Well,
go wrong.
This was like a big crossover without being a crossover at the time. I think it was groundbreaking in that it was self-contained. It kind of took people by surprise, and nobody really even knew what to do with it at the time. And looking back on it now, you're like, it was pretty important, but now it's bigger than I think it was.
Yeah, looking at, if someone were to say to me, hey, I'm just getting into comics, do you suggest me picking up that Iron Man? I would say, you know what? I think I would go in a different direction.
But as someone who's read a lot of Iron Man, unfortunately, this is one of the better ones, I think. And I got to point out really quick, he takes on Captain America, takes on one of the Avengers.
Captain.
He takes on Titanium Man, the Crimson Dynamo. So I think if you, as long as you go with a grain of salt, it's good.
all those people combined they're not as strong as Puck from Alpha Flight. Puck from Alpha Flight would beat all of them by himself.
Totally.
50 episodes, guys. Thank you.